So you're gonna remove all the plastic residue out of the head, so you end up with just the little rim. Once you have that rim, and make sure you really take good care of not having any residue on the bottom or around. So it should be just the metal rim. So if you leave any residue, that residue is gonna cut your mesh, because it's kind of sharp, so you have to be careful when you do that cutting. Wear gloves if possible, and eye protection as well. I can't emphasize safety enough. You always have to be safe when you use tools, and especially when you use power tools. Anyway, once you have the rim from a used head that obviously fits your drum, you're gonna cut I'm gonna say for the regular mesh, I cut 4 layers, which as you see, it doesn't really work well for the snare. It works well for toms, but in the end you wanna get something stronger, so get the pet-proof mesh, which in the case of the one I got is called Pet Defense. Just like this, Pet Defense, and it's obviously pet proof. It's a little more expensive. It's like a $18 or so for the roll, which is 84 inches long by 48 inches wide. So it's quite a bit of drums. If you're just gonna use 2 layers per drum, you can make plenty, and it's not too expensive. If you want to make more, it's even cheaper than buying just a single mesh head already made by Pintech or Roland. So this is how it goes. I'm gonna cut those pieces, and then I come back and show you how to stitch them up to the head so that you can have your own DIY mesh head. Okay, once you have cut your mesh slightly larger than the diameter of the rim. Like I said, it's 2 pieces. You want to overlap them, so there's one on top of the other. Doesn't matter if you put them go in the same direction or cross them. I'm just gonna put them on top of each other. And yes, this mesh is extremely, you can feel it. It's extremely stronger than way stronger than the regular window mesh. So I'm pretty positive this is gonna last a lot longer for a snare drum, or even for a bass drum. You might want to put 3 layers for a bass drum, but it will last a long time. I mean, if it can handle pets, especially big dogs, I'm pretty sure this is gonna handle drumsticks hitting it. So once you have it on that position, just like that, you want to use clamps, like this kind of clamps. I got this at the dollar store for, I don't know, like $5 or something, cheapo, and they're really strong. They have a spring and they're really strong. So you want at least 4. You want to clamp it so that the mesh doesn't move around when you are stitching it. So I'm going to show you how to clamp it, and then once the clamping is in place, I'm going to show you how you start your stitching. It's an up and down stitching, and you want to cut enough cord to complete the whole drum. So 6 to 7 feet should be enough. Okay, so I'm gonna pause this for a second, and then I'm gonna show you how to do the next thing. Okay, once you have it clamped, as you can see, you clamp one side just enough to go over the rim, about 2 inches, and then you really pull the mesh as tight as possible and clamp it on the other side. The two remaining clamps are going to be so when you're stitching you can move them around and follow your stitching. One is the one that keeps the next thing in place, and the other one is the one that you move around. So now I'm going to get the thread ready and show you how to do it. You have to use an upholstery needle, which is a really big needle for like furniture. You can get them at Walmart for like $1 or so. The reason being is that you need something that can actually hold the thread, and the thread that I'm using is the one that they use for construction to level stuff. Is called I forgot what it's called. Anyway, it's the thread that they use for construction. Is a really strong thing. It won't break. It'll stay in, and it's flexible enough to where you can use it easily without having to fight it too much. Be careful when using needle, do not puncture your fingers. And again, 6 to 7 feet of thread should be enough to cover a 14-inch snare. Okay, here we go. Okay, once you put your thread on your needle, you bring it in half so that you have exactly half of the thread. Put it through the bottom and then pull one half of the thread out so that only one half is on the inside, and this half that remains on the inside, that's where you are gonna make a knot, or more like 4 knots, and then you start doing the zigzag movement by going from the top of the head towards the inside, and then from the inside towards the top, from the top towards the inside, from the inside towards the top, and so on until you go all the way around. And be careful when using that needle, because as I just find out, this thread or this mesh is really hard to get through with the needle, so I have to use pliers to get it through. So be careful. Okay, here we go. Again, make sure that knot is on the bottom side of the head and not the top, so you don't see it. And we're gonna cut all that excess thread once we get around the head, which I'll show you once it's done. Okay, one more time. As you can see, you go from the inside of the head through, around, come out, and then go back in. Then you're going you skip another length, go back out, back in, back out, in, out, in. It's like an S pattern, so in, out, oh, I'm sorry, out, in, out, in, out, in, and so on. And you have to make sure that the string is really tight as you are doing this, so that when your head is placed on the drum, you don't have to really make it super tight. It should be already almost to the proper tension without having to place a lot of tension. And with this mesh, I don't think that's going to be a problem. Also, as you're going around, you have to make sure that the mesh itself is tight, doesn't have any ripples. It'll have some ripples because it's just how the mesh is. Even normal heads have ripples when they're not placed on a drum. So make sure you pull the mesh as tight as possible so that there's no ripples, or as little as possible. There's some other people that do the mesh with glue, or they melt some resin and they put them in on like wood hoops and stuff. I find that a little more complicated than making regular like this method. So if that works for you, by all means go for it. This is what works for me, and it works pretty well. Okay, once we have completed the mesh head, we proceed to trim out the excess on the back. and like as you can see here, there's a lot of excess material, and place it on the drum. So here we go. Okay, once you trim all the excess, you have a nice looking head, which we're going to place on the drum. Not before painting the stitches black so they don't show up as much, and then we place it in the drum and we'll test it. Okay, I left 2 stitches unpainted. As you can see, is they disappear once you paint them with the marker, so you really can't see them that well or at all. So I'm gonna paint the other 2 just so you guys see how they pretty much disappear once you use your friendly Sharpie, and they're gone. And yeah, you can still see it when you're up close, but they won't be able to see it from a distance of more than 4 or 5 feet. Okay, let's place this on the drum and see what we have. Okay, our head is mounted, and this time, instead of going with the full bridge like on this one that goes from side to side, I just made a small one, which is this little piece right here. It's going to be mounted to one of the screws, and on this part you have the sensor assembly, or the piezo assembly. One of them is going to be sticking to this part like this, and when this is mounted, the piezo would be going below as such, and this piece would be going on top, and we'll see it in action on another video. Thank you for watching.